I'm bringing the conversation to the book. And like I said earlier, when I picked this book and I read a few chapters into it, I never focused that much on the message as in it being a book about thinking the long term as far as success is concerned.
Yeah.
The first thing that occurred to me was about learned helplessness. I was like, wow, this is an issue that has engulfed us as a world for so long. And so this book coming along, it is the solution to that very problem. Until when I went along reading it and I discovered that, oh, yes, it solved the problem of what's the word? The problem of learned helplessness. But at the same time, it's all about success, thinking over success in the long term and knowing that every good thing in life doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, So I want to bring the conversation to the book. Now, first of all, the first question I want to ask is, before making the decision to write these books, what did you see, as far as the personal development world is concerned, and because of that, you took the step to write this book. Now, I read somewhere that, when you had enrolled back to college and you were working as a newspaper, magazine seller, whatever, and you happened to read some of the newspapers and the magazines that you used to sell, the one thing that occurred to you was that, everything that you read about success was all about the overnight success. People were not giving people time, to realize their full potential.
Yeah.
And it was all about the overnight success and stuff like that. Was it because of that, realization that made you take the step to want to write this book in the first place, or what?
Well, because I left school, went to art college for 3 years, and then I dropped out, and then I went to university. I felt like I was like 3 or 4 years behind my friends and my peers in terms of getting started in life, because I sort of started again from scratch. So I got very interested in this thing of at what age people become successful.
Yeah.
And every time I'd read a biography or whatever, I was thinking, oh, well, what were they doing by the time they were 25 or 30 or 35? And I was thinking like me, or am I too late, etc. So, and then I started getting into the whole personal development literature, which, as you said, is very much about becoming successful very quickly, making $1 million or doing this or doing that. So there was very little about time, the role of time in success. So for me, that became like the missing link. Once I realized that every successful person usually takes, decades to sort of often get into their stride, suddenly I was like, oh, relax. Okay. At the time I was like 26 or something. I felt like a weight lifted because I thought, actually, I've got tons of time.
Yeah.
I've got decades to get going, to choose what I want to do, to be successful.
Yeah.
I don't have to have this thing like learned helplessness.
Yeah.
Poor mental health because I'm worried about I haven't got anywhere.
Yeah.
So once I realized this thing about the role of time and success, I realized, okay, that I felt much better about it all.
Yeah.
And that was the message with this book I wanted to give to others.
Yeah.
It was like, you're okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, like you said, it's one of the reasons why I love the book when I picked it up, because when I read it, I was like, now the pressure could be off, because you and I agree that the culture that we find ourselves in as the Western culture, it's all about, that thing, like become successful now or you are nothing. And so when people have gotten to an age like 30, 40, or even 50, and they haven't achieved anything, they feel like they are failures. And that is where the idea of learned helplessness, sets in. But with your book and the revelations that, you put across in the book, you make the reader get to know that, hey, it's not about what the culture is telling you. It's about the reality and what the research is saying. And I'm happy that you could bring about, what's his name? The guy behind the magic of thinking big, David Schwartz,
Oh, yeah, the Schwartz exercise.
Yes, you could bring in that exercise. And I did the exercise myself, and before I go in there, I want to state this in here that, based on the revelation and the research that you carry across the book, if you are someone out there, you are watching us and you are 20 years old, based on the calculation that you presented in the book, that based on the new research in science and in medicine and in technology, unlike our forefathers, we are able to live up until at least 80 years old before we die, more or
Right.
less.
Productive lifespan from age 20 to 80, basically.
Yes. And so if you start work from the age of 20, out of the 80 years that you have as your lifespan, you have 60 years of productive years ahead of you.
Yeah.
And you did some calculations in there that you said when you are at the age of 20 years, you have 60 years and 100% of productive years ahead of you. If you are 25 years old, you have 55 years and 92% of productive years ahead of you, and so forth and so on. You know, I
Yeah.
did my own calculation at this age at 36, and I realized that if I deduct 36 from 80, I have 44 years and 60 years of productivity, you know, ahead of me. So
Right.
why the rush in the first place, you know?
Yeah.
So those are the revelations that I came across from the book, and you know, I loved it. And I'm also happy that you could carry stories of, you know, people who have made their mark, you know, on the world, you know, in the book for the reader to get to know that, hey, all these people that we look up to them, you know, as our role models and stuff like that. This is how their life went about. And overnight success isn't actual success, but the one that is slow cooked, you know. And
Yeah.
you spoke about Winston Churchill, you know, his political life, how things, you know, went about with him, you know, that in spite of everything, true success came to him when he was around 60 years old. And you made mention of another British political man, which is William Higgs. You know, you talk about this
William
man that,
Hague.
yes, you know, he had success earlier on in his life, but later on, it didn't last.
Yeah, that's I think I've got a whole chapter on stories of people who were successful when young, or won a prize or whatever, and then they felt great, and then after that, you know, there wasn't like people weren't knocking at their door all the time. So often these people had early success, then they had a sort of wilderness period, often 10, 15 years, like Churchill, many writers, until they were sort of successful again. So I think that if you're watching this, you feel like you're in some sort of wilderness period of time. The advice in the book is that you have to sort of like, okay, admit that you're in this period, and just sort of relax into it and enjoy it and see what you can learn from it. Okay, things are not happening for you right now. So if they're not happening, what should you be doing? You should be increasing a skill, studying something. I mentioned like Sigmund Freud, Charles Darwin, a few other people, and they had these periods like often a decade of silence, where they were just working away. They had no public renown. They were just focused on what they were doing. But without that period of 10 years, they would never have become the person they became, what they were famous for. So you have to have the sort of mental resilience to immerse yourself in these periods where you're not getting any recognition, and use it in terms of what you're going to become in the future. You know, throw yourself into the process of it. So things like wilderness periods, they're sort of taboo, as you said, in a modern capitalist society, where nothing seems to be happening, and it causes people to have a sense of desperation. So I say in the books totally the opposite. You know, it's okay. In the span of 60 years of productive life, 10 years is, it's less than 20%.
And I'm happy that you could talk in the book about even people who have enjoyed overnight success, like quote unquote, we see them to be. You talk about them in the book that even some of these people that we see them to be, you know, in those spaces, their overnight success isn't actually overnight success. And it could be that, and it's not even, it could be that, it is that, you know, they started working on their craft when they were children. So by the time they come into the limelight and you will be projecting or thinking that it's overnight success, they've been giving like 10, 15 years to their craft before you seeing it.
Absolutely. I think I've got most of a chapter in the book about Ray Kroc, who started McDonald's.
Yeah.
And he was in his 50s by the time he bought the original or franchised the original McDonald's restaurant run by two brothers. Because for those brothers, they were happy with 2 or 3 stores. And in his mind, he could see like thousands of them across America. But the thing is, he had been a salesman selling like paper cups for 15 years, salesman selling all sorts of other things. And his wife thought, okay, we're set for life. We've got enough money almost for you to retire. In his mind, he was like, no, this is just the start. You know, I've got visions. I've got stuff I want to do. And so, you know, it's one of the sayings I like. I haven't been able to find out who actually said it, whether it was Bill Gates or Anthony Robbins, that people overestimate what they can achieve in a year and underestimate what they can achieve in a decade. And again, that goes against, you know, what modern society, overnight success teaches us. But again, it's about relaxing into what you're doing and, you know, waiting for it to bear fruit when it does at the right time. There's that saying, what is it, Warren Buffett said, that, you know, some things just take time. You can't get, I've got it here somewhere. No matter how great the talent or effort, some things just take time. You can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant.
No.
I mean,
It doesn't make sense.
So time is what it is. Sometimes you can sort of put yourself into a situation like the 10,000 hours thing where you immerse yourself. But even doing that, you don't have control over your outcomes or the success. So that you have to throw yourself into the process or the skill or what you're doing. And then the results and time just take care of themselves.